Folks, you ever wonder what ghosts actually are? I think maybe they might be scars left on the earth from some traumatic event. I had a philosopher friend tell me one time, he thought it was just history screaming from the past, refusing to be quiet. I kind of like that too. I think about ghosts a lot. My name's Joel Brashear, and I am, among a few other things, an Appalachian storyteller. And the one I got for you today, I've heard versions of my whole life. I call it Topper's Bluff. There's this area, a couple towns over from here, way up in the hollers, that around the Civil War time, folks was running kind of as a commune. The Civil War was a terrible time for all of us here in America. They had a farm up there that they were operating, and there was a family of former slaves called the Freemans that had moved up from somewhere in the deep South. James Freeman was one of the first African-American landowners in the region, apparently. He brought his family up, him and the missus, and their young daughter Abigail, and they got them a little parcel of land on this creek and started doing real well. One of the families on that commune was called the Morgans. Mr. Morgan actually sold James Freeman the parcel of land that he started farming, and they were neighbors. And Mr. Morgan had a son. His name was William, but everybody called him Topper because he loved to hang out in the tops of the trees. I mean, if there was a tree, this boy would climb it. Well, Topper and Abigail was about the same age, and they weren't a whole lot of kids on that holler. So nature being what it is, boys and girls, they started hanging out with one another, and before you know it, they sneaking off and holding hands and canoodling. So, I mean, they's a mite smitten. They loved one another. Is in the top of one of them trees, they's up there holding hands. They swore eternal love to each other, and as soon as they's old enough, they's going to get married and live happily ever after. They's the cutest thing ever was. Well, one day, Mr. Morgan came to his son Topper and said, "Son, we got to run to town. I got to go on a supply run. Me and your ma's going to take the horse and the cart and head into town. You stay here, watch over everything, and we'll be back, tomorrow evening." This wasn't anything unusual. It happened from time to time, and Topper was old enough where he could handle this. So his mom and pa set out. Now, this was before there was a lot of roads set up, so they had to go in the creek. So as soon as they turned the bend in that, we'll call it a river, Topper went out running and motioned for Abigail to come down, and they climbed up in a tree and was just staring lovingly in one another's eyes, whiling the hours away. Well, they's up there for a good while when Topper heard a noise. It's horses beating in the creek, coming around, and he knew it wasn't his ma and pa. So he started watching, seeing who the visitors were, because they didn't have a lot of folks just showing up this way. Well, as they turned, Topper saw they was wearing gray coats, and they's pretty beat up. He knew what that meant. Topper jumped down and told Abigail to be quiet. This small platoon of Confederate soldiers rode up to the gate there at the Morgan farm and said, "Son, it is your lucky day. You get to support the Confederate Army. We're here to commission all your bacon, all your bullets, all your flour, all your coffee, and we'll take any horses you have." And Topper said, "Well, sir, I sure would like to help you, but we ain't got much of that stuff. My mom and pa went to town. They took the only horse we have, and they's on a supply run. I can fetch you a little bit of stuff." Well, this sergeant or whatever he was wasn't in the mood for no foolishness. He looked down and said, "Son, if you don't fetch us some supplies, there's going to be trouble." Well, Topper didn't want nothing but to get these folks off the farm, so he ran around and collected whatever he could find. And he ran it back out. He said, "Sir, this is all I got." He gave it to the sergeant. They weren't happy, but they rode on. Well, as soon as them soldiers were out of earshot, Topper looked up and motioned down for Abigail to come out the tree. She hopped down and Topper said, "Run home to your ma and pa. Tell them there's bad folks about. Don't come out till I come get you. Stay in your house and hunker down." Abigail ran on home, told her ma and pa what was going on. Well, the next morning, Topper still ain't come and got Abigail. She was having a pure fit. And her mom and pa didn't want her to leave, but she wasn't going to listen, and she ran out the house. It was in the creek bank she first noticed something was wrong. There were streaks of blood there on the rocks, on the shoals of the creek. Looked like little strips of fabric from the shirt she knew Topper was wearing yesterday. Cold chill ran through her the closer she got to the farm. As soon as she got to the gate, that's where she found him. He was still alive, hanging there. They'd strung him up to a tree, but he was barely hanging on. She kept a little pocket knife in the apron she always wore, and she cut him down. They must have dragged him, Lord knows how many times, through that creek. I mean, he looked awful, but he still smiled at her as she held him. She said, "Abigail, you found me." He died right there in her arms. She held on to him till his mom and pa came back. You can go to a place today called Topper's Bluff. Now they say on a certain night, if you go camping out, as many teenagers will do, you might hear something. You might hear hoofs of a horse running up and down the shallows of that creek. You might hear a young boy screaming for help. Those are the bad nights. There's other nights when you're up on Topper's Bluff. You might see a young dark-skinned girl and a young light-skinned boy walking along the creek bank holding hands. You might even see them in the top of a tree looking at each other, all in love. Those are the good nights. That's how I like to think about Topper and Abigail. Folks, I'll be back real soon with another story. I hope you like these. I like doing them. If you do, give us a like and a share. Let other folks know what we're doing, and we'll be back real soon. Till then, you stay safe out there.